Hi, I'm Brabbaw, George Brabbaw, and this is Fat Ninja Food Forest. Shout out to Paul Beckwith for doing the James Bond opening. I hope that got your attention. Trying to talk gardening. Obviously, permaculture, like always, and all the different things within. One thing, I went to a neighborhood economics meeting today. And in the neighborhood economics meeting, we were talking about remembering our lost ways. Big part of that, growing our food, storing our food, canning our food, dehydrating our food, processing our food. We also talked about compensating. How do we get this word out to people? How do we find each other? Neighborhood economics is one of the people working on that in different cities and areas. I don't know a whole bunch about it. I don't want to speak too much to it. But at the meeting, we also one lady spoke about this lost knowledge, and it really is. I tell a story of my grandmother telling the story of getting a farm when she was almost too young to be married, having their first children. There was no running water, no power. Slowly over the years, getting all those things, learning to grow their own food for their animals. Until now, she's passed on now, until they had 12 children, 35 grandchildren, 100 great grandchildren, flying around the world, talking on their cell phones. They went over. But in those 3 generations, we'd lost all that knowledge. How to prepare our own food, how to grow our own food, how to save our own seed, how to work the soil, all these different things. So part of that is regaining that knowledge. I would say permaculture goes a step beyond that and talks about remembering our indigenous ways, our lost ways of really connecting with the forest. So it's not just these annual gardens, but how do all these perennials fit in, and how do we work with these? How do we get all those synchronicities, all those connections? I can stand right here and show you so many plants that we use in so many different ways. I just saw some lovage coming up at my feet that's been here for years. So remembering all these things, teaching abundance. A big part of that was finding a way to, you don't need to look at me, to fund that. I'm standing here and it just smells so wonderful next to this gummy berry, and the bees are all over it, even on this cloudy day. But to fund these things, then we get into the cost of it, compensation, and we do need to be compensated. But then the other side of that is that's how we got here, this constant drive for money. So part of us remembering our ways is that we're not. We shouldn't be so connected to that, and we shouldn't get our happiness through money. Jeez, I'm going all over with this video. So beautiful, you can enjoy the ride around. I'm going to start being more blunt about the place here. I've had so many people tell me, especially when they show up here in person and seen it, and well-respected people, that this is one of the better, not the best and not the greatest, but one of the better examples around of really putting all these principles together. We're on a half acre in the city here, and we just produce so much for ourselves. So I'm not going to bragging about that. I'm going to turn this around so I can see myself talking. So a big part of that for me is, yeah, we lost our way. But what we're teaching is almost a new way of life, the best of both worlds. So I talk about permaculture is, I go on, the layers and the guilds and mimicking a forest and how we do it in society. It's also how we spend our days. So I talk about the permaculture lifestyle. I was sharing pictures and I said that it's a lifestyle for us. I'm sitting here talking to you. The ducks are down here hanging out with me next to the waterfall. We saw the bees, and here comes my dog. I gotta let her in. Almost everything you see is edible, but then we gotta know how to grow it. How do we use it? How do we store it? What are its uses? How do we create the soil? How do we do all this without any inputs? So these are the things we need to teach. Those that teach it are gonna need compensation. Others are going to have to know they even want it in their lives as things start crashing more and more around us, and there's no way around it, whatever your point of view is on it. The crash doesn't mean ending. We're not going to end, so what are we going to do about these things? How are we going to prepare for these changes coming? So that way of life for us is, I even say for people during the, during the Great Depression, some of those that had the least Not everyone. In the cities, you weren't like that. But on farms and up in the hills, their life probably changed the least. They weren't so dependent on the money for their happiness and their needs. They knew how to get it from the land around them. So we do that now. We have lots of surplus at this point. We have lots of billionaires at this point. Lots of money at the top. So then we get into the economic costs. Jeez, I'm going everywhere with this. But they should be funding these things. How do we get that money back? How do we go into a more of a, I'm going to say it, socialist mindset? I'm just looking at all the, I just want to talk about food everywhere that I'm seeing and different things I'm seeing here. And that's what I want to teach. I'm not doing it for the money. I'm doing it to help save society. My wife and I do just fine. If I want to go swing a hammer every day and hurt my back, I can do that. It's not about me. So how do we learn to do all this? How do we teach how to do this? How do we redistribute that wealth? I'm going to say, how do we redistribute that wealth? How do we help everyone? How do we help those with the least right now? And that's not me by any means. How do we help those with the least? I see society when people get a hand up, they're the ones that do the most out there. When they get that hand up, they want to help others. And that's how I felt when I have a long story. I went through a deep, deep depression years ago from having a brother murdered. That's what this came from. So how do we help those people? All right. I've been going on and on. Don't even know what the plot was anymore. Help me help you. Help us help each other. Let's start these conversations. Let's stop getting our happiness through who's got the most fun chips, as a friend used to call them. Who's got the most dollars. Dollars are only worth so much, and we're going to learn that very quickly. Part of that conversation today was, let's go. It was finding alternative economies, currencies. And that'll be part of it. We have to remember the reason this happened was that ego, feeling of needing more rather than being happy. Geez, I'm just going off on a tangent. George Fat interviewed for us. Let's help each other. Let me know what you think about this. Let's start this conversation. I hope this was maybe a starting piece for us. This Saturday, 15th, 4:15, 4/5, the guild class here. We'll talk about guilds. Hope to see you there. Peace.